Hey guys, Bipp here. I'm kind of bored, so I went and looked up the patch 4 or 5.4 notes, and I thought I'd talk to you about the Warlock changes in specific. I'm sorry. I'll leave a link below in the description to the full page of notes in case you're curious what else is going on. But I do want to focus mainly on Warlocks because there are some interesting changes, and surprisingly, not the spec I expected to be nerfed. Um, which if I ever made any previous comments about Destro being nerfed, I mean, it's not getting exactly buffed, but I do take those back. But I'll just get right into it with the notes. So under General, under the tab, which also will include some Destro notes, they didn't really have a whole Destro whole setup. So gateways are no longer attackable, which is really nice. So people can't kill them or just destroy them, in the beginning. So or attack them in general. The issue, not the issue, but to compensate for this, they're making it so gateways have when to use that debuff to not be able to use it again. It's now a minute long instead of 15 seconds. So it kind of takes away the aspect of kiting a little. It makes it a little more difficult to kite as a warlock. Is what I'm trying to say. Since it's a 45-second increase on a debuff, so normally you'd be able to get off 3, and now in the time that you're now going to have to wait to get off the second. So yeah, Fell Armor no longer reduces all damage taken by 10%, so it's kind of a nerf to basically our defensive passive, but just is what it is. I want to make sure I don't mess that up either. Let's see here. Um, Maybe it's not for. I feel pretty stupid right now, to be honest with you, but whatever. Um, it's somewhere in here, guys. Anyway, oh, there it is, right there. Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, so basically it's only going to give you health now, and your health regenerated by 10%. So it's still not bad. It's just basically took out the damage reduction. Um, Foul Flame, this is actually pretty nice for demo in specific because in arena and stuff you generally use this to build up demonic fury. Foul Flame is now is getting buffed by 13% of damage, and it costs 2% less mana, so you don't go as fast and does more damage for you as demo and stuff. However, it no longer increases the duration of like corruption or immolate or unstable affliction, so that kind of does suck for refreshing dots. Not so much as Destro because you can cast immolate again pretty easily. It's just 1 dot, but for affliction it's kind of rough. Makes multi-dotting just that much more difficult. Um, Rain of Fire has a reduced chance to generate burning embers. This really needed to happen. This is a change that I feel, even as a warlock, needed to happen. Um, Essentially, these warlocks could drop one rain of fire on top of a bunch of pets, a bunch of imps, stampede, and just get 4 burning embers like just right off the bat. So it's definitely necessary. And a little extra, the green fire thing that I have, the codex, will now make like this. The dread seed will be green, which I think is really cool. And dread seed will be green. Your fell seed and your dread seed. The abyssal will be green. Your demonic fury will be green. Dark Apotheosis will be green. Demonic leap will have a green animation to it. And that's pretty cool. And now we're going to get into affliction changes. And this is pretty serious because affliction's actually getting a pretty hefty nerf, which kind of surprised me that of all the specs, they targeted affliction. I'm not saying affliction's weak right now, and by no means am I saying that. It's actually pretty strong, especially at higher end arena. But I really didn't expect that this not massive, but strong of a nerf. And I have the math for you at the end of it. Agony will deal 5% more damage, which is a buff. Drained Soul, though, is getting nerfed pretty heavily. It's nerfed 40% less damage than it normally would do, and when below 20%, it only deals 60% of the normal dot damage instead of dealing 100% of the periodic damage. So it's a pretty hefty nerf. One of the fewer buffs going to Affliction as well. This is pretty much almost, this saves Affliction, to be honest with you, because they don't put this buff in. Affliction's really dumb shitter. They gave Haunt 50% more initial damage, and they increased the damage done by your dots by 15%, more than what it was. It was at 30, and now it's 45. So that's pretty nice. Malefic Grasp is getting nerfed. You're only going to deal 40%. I'm sorry, it's going to deal 40% less damage and cause the periodic to do only 30% of their normal damage instead of 50%. That's a pretty hefty nerf. Nightfall now gives Corruption an increased chance to generate a Soul Shard, which is pretty nice because they need to do that. Because if they're nerfing, you're going to hear the math on this in a second. You're going to realize how much they are really nerfing Affliction. They really do need to give you some kind of way out with maybe more haunts or more ability to put your dots back up. Soul Swap's getting changed. Basically, the glyph is being combined with the spell, the glyph that would leave your dots on the target. There will be no cooldown on Soul Swap now. However, the dots timers will be a little bit different. They will only preserve their power and duration once, then they'll be reduced to 6 seconds, down from 20 seconds. So it's kind of a catch-22 with that. And Unstable Affliction will now deal 10% more damage. So with the math and Affliction, guys, essentially with all of it comes down to is you're losing around 2801, I'm sorry, exactly 2,801 damage per second, and which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that's 168k damage a minute, or 84k damage every 30 seconds, which is really strong if you really think about that. It's really hefty as a nerf-wise. So it's going to be interesting to see how Affliction does in the higher-end arena after this. It should still be strong, because even 168k a minute you can compensate for, but I just don't see it being even. I didn't think it was that strong, but as strong as before. Next, I'll talk about Demonology. Demonology's got like 2 things that are happening to it, and it's getting buffed. Or 3 things I'd like to say. For starters, Archimonde's Vengeance is now becoming Archimonde's Darkness, which they really need to rework this spell because it's kind of shitty, like really bad. Like, it looks good on the surface, but it's really awful as a spell. So like that, the change will give you 2 charges on your Dark Soul, which I'm not saying it's still really good for Destro and Affliction, but if you really think about it, the big Dark Soul gain out of this is Demo, because Demo's mastery is huge for them. That's what Dark Soul gives them. And if you think about it, Demo is always considered so cooldown dependent, so now it'll have basically a Dark Soul, they'll come out of it and they'll be able to do it again. So they'll be able to consistently keep up that burst damage that they're getting. It's really strong. So they'll have 2 charges, kind of like a Hand of Gul'dan or Conflagrate. Dark Soul Knowledge they're increasing the mastery you get by an additional 30%. So I didn't do the math on this, but I can real quick. You get 18k, let me make sure I'm getting that right. There we go. 18k, yep, 18k. I'm not a clicker, by the way. Those are separate so I can see cooldowns. 18k times 30, 5,400 plus 18. You're getting, it's going to be 23,400 mastery from Dark Soul. That's huge. I mean, that's gigantic in damage-wise. So it's really nice. And then the Fell Flame buff also happening is really nice for Demo. Other than that, Grimoire of Sacrifice will no longer affect Drain Life. Affliction Warlocks, Grimoire of Sacrifice. This is another nerf. I actually didn't even account this into my math, but it really, if you're running Sacrifice's Affliction, this affects you pretty heavily. I don't run it, but some people do. Basically, you're giving a 10% nerf to the single target damage of your Grimoire of Sacrifice. It was 30%. Now you're only getting 20%. So it's pretty substantial. Glove of Dark Soul has been replaced because of the new way Archimonde's Darkness is going to work. And it's going to be Curse of Elements. And Curse of Elements basically does what old school the talent would Affliction, and or what it did in Kata if you soul, what the fuck is it called? Drains Soulburn. Damn it. Drains. I'm sorry. It's late. Soulburn. It put on 2 nearby targets. So if you're in 3s and you get a Curse of Elements off them, let's say like initially, it could get on all 3 of them, which really helps with your multi-dotting and any damage necessarily from any magic running like MLS or Shadow Play or anything like that. So it's really nice. Everlasting Affliction has been taken out, which it needed to be. Excuse me. It's been replaced by Glyph of Eternal Resolve. And Eternal Resolve basically changed that enemy resolve to be a passive that gives you 10% reduction. So basically they're giving you Fell Armor back, but like you're losing on this. And honestly, I don't use Unending Resolve as a defensive. I use it more as a thing to stop me from getting interrupted from fearing or using Chaos Bolts or anything like that. So that glyph's not even viable for me. It really shouldn't be for you if you're using Unending Resolve correctly. I'm not saying that you can't use it as a defensive. I'm saying it should be used more as that interrupt than as a defensive. Because it's so much more useful in that sense. You already have strong enough defensives, in my opinion. Glyph of Fear no longer puts Fear on your cooldown. Glyph of Imp Swarm now summons 4 Wild Imps instead of 5. It's really not that big of a deal. It's a minor nerf to Demo. It's not that big of a deal. And Glyph of Shadow Flame has been replaced by Glyph of Enemy Resolve, which basically makes Enemy Resolve. I actually kind of like this one. I might use it. To where it reduces, like, so you only get a 20% damage reduction, but it decreases the cooldown by a minute. which is really nice because, like I said, I don't use it for a defensive, and I use it for a silence, and having one less minute on that cooldown would be really tight. So I might use that. It's actually a nice change. Soul Swap is replaced by Havoc. Obviously, Soul Swap being reworked, there's no need for a glyph. Havoc gives you 3 additional charges, so you'll have 3 charges on your Havoc, your Destro. Blah blah blah. I'm looking at things. Okay. Harvest Life no longer replaces Drain Life. Harvest Life is now passive. Increases Drain Life's damage by 50%, healing by 150. It's actually a really strong buff to Drain Life. I'm wondering what Blizzard's goal is with this. I think they want Drain Life to be used more because I don't even use it. So we'll see. However, there's no longer going to be an area of effect spell from Harvest Life. It's just going to give you that. It's just going to give you that buff to Drain Life. I think it's more of a leveling thing, to be honest with you, but I'm not sure. Howl Terror is no longer talent. This is probably my favorite change of all of them, besides Archimonde's Darkness. I love my Howl Terror. I loved it in Cat. I loved it in Wrath as Affliction. But, like, now that they made a talent, it's just not viable because of DR with Fear, and you really do want Mortal Coil or Shadow Fury. So it's really nice they're giving us as a spell. And instead they're giving us Demonic Breath, which is basically going to be a breath area of effect that basically roots everybody where they're at, which isn't going to be that great, but at least they're giving us Howl of Terror. Killjane's Cunning is getting reworked. You basically you'll only be able to cast Incinerate, Shadow Bolt, or Malefic Grasp while moving, which is still not bad, but like with Archimonde's Darkness, Demo can just pretty much forget about anything but that. Like, that's amazing for Demo. Destro I can see going into Killjane's Cunning and Affliction as well for certain comps they face. Other than that, I think everyone's pretty much going into Darkness for that extra charge on Dark Soul, which is just a really nice buff. Mannoroth's Fury, that's pretty much a PvE thing. I'm going to skip that. I'll put in, remember, you'll see the link described and I'll look at it. Blah, 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 that's also PvE. Soul Link will now transfer 20% of damage taken to their pet, and 3% of all damage dealt by the Warlock will heal you and your pet. So, what was it before? I barely use this besides. Okay, so basically it just gives you, it's kind of a nerf, but like it helps you with like keeping you and your demon alive, and it helps. I'd say it's more of a leveling type thing, to be honest with you, but that's that. Those are basically the changes to Warlocks. Overall, guys, Destro's kind of getting, I would say Destro's pretty much going to be just as strong as it is now. Effective Destro players will still play Destro really well. Demo's getting a pretty nice buff. Like, it doesn't look like that big of a buff on the surface, but it's huge. Like, I mean, look at, like, okay, for instance, I'm at passively without using Dark Soul. I just want to go over this real quick. I'm at almost 20% mastery. I'm at 1955, so I pop Dark Soul, and I go up to 50% mastery. That's even going to go up higher. That's going to go up another, that's probably like 52, I want to say 52, 53% mastery, which is just huge. It increases the damage right now. It's probably going to increase the damage by over 150% you deal with Metamorphosis, and you're going to get that buff twice. That is massive. Massive as a buff. So you definitely are going to enjoy that as Demo. Demo, I think, is getting a heavy buff, in my opinion. And leaving it off, Affliction's getting nerfed. I mean, flat out, it is getting a nerf. Whether you want to call it a big nerf or not is up to you, but it is a nerf nonetheless. Guys, this is Bipp. I want to thank you for watching. Why don't you check out more of my videos, more to come. If you want to drop a like, comment, see what your thoughts are, and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. And until next time, be well, guys.